It is my birthday evening, and I am in the kitchen, cutting the cake that I baked for myself. The house is quiet, my husband is in the shower, my stepson is in his room. The warm scent of vanilla fills the air, and I feel a bit lonely despite it being my special day. Suddenly I hear footsteps approaching behind me. I turn around to find my stepson, 19, standing too close. His expression is unreadable, half smirk, half serious. "You really should not be in the kitchen alone, looking this beautiful on your birthday." His voice is low, his eyes lingering. My heart skips a beat. There is something off about the way he looks at me. The tension in the room shifts dramatically. His fingers brush against my wrist as I place the knife down. My breath catches. This is not normal. The soft glow from the kitchen light made everything seem strangely surreal, almost like I was outside my own body, watching the moment unfold. My fingers trembled slightly as I reached for the knife, slicing through the cake I had made for myself. It was my birthday, yet I felt alone. My husband was in the shower upstairs, the sound of water humming through the walls. The house was quiet except for that, until I heard the footsteps. I did not turn immediately. I felt the presence before I saw him, the shift in the air, the slight pressure in my chest that told me I was not alone anymore. Then a voice, low and too close. "You really should not be alone in the kitchen, looking this beautiful on your birthday." My hand stilled mid-slice. I turned my head slowly, cautiously. My stepson stood behind me, his eyes dark, watching me in a way that made my stomach twist. Something was off. His usual playful smirk was there, but beneath it, something lingered. Something unreadable. I let out a soft, uneasy chuckle. "Should you not be asleep?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Could not." He shrugged, stepping closer. "Too much on my mind." I swallowed. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. "Want some cake?" I offered, trying to steer the moment back to something normal. He did not respond right away. His gaze flickered from my hands to my face, then down, lingering just a little too long. My stomach clenched. It was subtle, but I noticed. "You bake this yourself?" he asked. "Of course." I forced a smile. "Your father is not much of a baker." A low chuckle escaped him, but it felt different this time. Then, without warning, he reached forward and traced his finger over mine, just barely touching my skin. My breath caught. It was brief, but intentional. I withdrew my hand immediately, but he only smirked. "You have icing on your finger," he said, his voice too casual, too slow. I did not. I knew I did not. My chest felt tight. The air seemed thicker, heavier. I started, stepping back, but he moved with me. A silent dance. I could hear the sound of the shower upstairs still running. My husband was right there, yet it felt like miles separated us. I tried to shake the feeling, tried to pretend this was nothing, that I was overreacting. But then he took another step. Too close now. The counter pressed against my lower back. I had nowhere to move. He leaned slightly, his breath warm against my neck. My pulse pounded in my ears. "You always smell so good," he murmured. Every muscle in my body locked. This is inappropriate," I managed to say, my voice dry, unfamiliar. "You need to step back." "Why?" His smirk did not waver. "Because I said so." For a moment he just looked at me, his head tilting slightly, as if amused. Then something shifted in his face. The smirk faded. His expression turned darker. "You are my stepmother," I reminded him. "This is wrong." He only blinked. Then, deliberately, he raised his hand and brushed a strand of my hair behind my ear. A sharp shiver ran down my spine. I slapped his hand away, hard. The sound echoed in the small kitchen. His jaw tightened, eyes flashing with something that almost looked like enjoyment. He liked the reaction. My heartbeat thundered. "You should leave," I whispered, hating how my voice shook. He stayed where he was. I glanced at the door. I could run, I could call out. But my husband, would he believe me? Would he believe that his son had just cornered his wife in their own kitchen on her birthday? Panic coiled in my chest, a slow, suffocating thing. I reached for the cake knife, not as a weapon, just something to grip, something solid. But the second I picked it up, his hand closed around my wrist. Firm, not rough, but enough. "You do not need that," he murmured. I wrenched my arm back, and for the first time a flicker of surprise crossed his face. Maybe he had not expected me to fight back, but before I could say anything, he chuckled. A low, slow sound. "You are shaking." I was. I hated that he noticed. The shower upstairs stopped. Silence. For a second, neither of us moved. Then, as if nothing had happened, he took a step back. His smirk returned, lazy and knowing. "Happy birthday, bye," he said before turning and walking away. I stood there, frozen, my body still humming with adrenaline. The weight of what had just happened crashed into me all at once. I felt dirty, sick, violated. And worst of all, I was terrified that this was not over. The kitchen felt airless, like all the oxygen had been sucked out, leaving only tension, thick and suffocating. My hands trembled as I gripped the counter behind me, my breath uneven, erratic. My stepson's eyes did not move from mine, his smirk still lingering, knowing as if he enjoyed the fear coursing through me. I wanted to speak, to scream, but my throat felt like it had locked shut. Then I heard it. The shower stopped. The distant squeak of the tap being turned off sent a bolt of relief and terror through me at the same time. Relief, because my husband was upstairs. He was here. Terror, because he was about to step into this moment. For a split second, my stepson hesitated. His fingers twitched, his body still too close, his breath still too warm against my skin. Then, as if reading my mind, he suddenly let go. Not in guilt, not in fear, in amusement. "You are shaking," he murmured, that smug smirk never leaving his lips. I was. I hated that he noticed, hated that my body had betrayed me. I swallowed, my hands clenching into fists, trying to find my voice, trying to form words that would make this moment make sense. But before I could say anything, footsteps, heavy, approaching footsteps down the stairs. My body went rigid. My stepson did not move. He just stood there watching, waiting, as if enjoying the next scene of his twisted game. Then my husband walked in. The kitchen froze. For a single terrifying second, the only sound was the distant hum of the refrigerator and the faint dripping of water from my husband's wet hair. I felt his gaze cut through me first, then shift to my stepson. His face changed instantly. His eyes narrowed, flicking between the two of us, confusion flashing before it turned into something darker. He saw it. Saw the way I stood against the counter, tense, unsettled. Saw the way his son stood too close, eyes lingering. Saw the slight shake in my hands. The way I had not moved, had not breathed properly since he entered the room. His jaw clenched. "What the hell is going on?" The words were low, controlled, but there was something underneath. A dangerous edge, something simmering, ready to explode. I opened my mouth, but my voice failed me. I wanted to tell him. I needed to tell him. But how? How do you explain something that should not have happened? Before I could find the words, my stepson moved first. He smirked. Not a full one, subtle, barely there, but enough for my stomach to drop. "Nothing," he said, his voice easy, too casual. "We were just talking." "Liar." I turned to my husband, my mouth dry. "That is not talking." My husband's voice sharpened, eyes flickering between us. I saw it in his face. Doubt, My heartbeat slammed in my chest. I knew what this looked like. I knew what he was trying to do. My husband's gaze darted to me, and for a split second there was hesitation. I needed to fix this. I needed to make him believe me before I was just helping her with something, my stepson interrupted smoothly. She seemed nervous. I was just asking if she was okay. A slow, icy dread crawled up my spine. His words were carefully chosen, crafted. He was flipping it, turning himself into the concerned one, turning me into the one acting strange. My husband's face shifted. Doubt deepened into something worse. I shook my head quickly. No, that is not. She has been acting a little weird tonight, my stepson added. Maybe it is just the stress of her birthday. I snapped my gaze to him, my breath hitching. What was he doing? He was lying, planting seeds, making me seem like I was the unstable one. And my husband, he was listening. I saw it in his face. The hesitation, the conflict. My stomach twisted painfully. He should not be hesitating. He should believe me. Is that true? My husband's voice was quieter now, but there was a sharpness beneath it. I wanted to scream, wanted to tell him everything, wanted to tell him how his son had stood too close, had touched me in ways that made my skin crawl, had looked at me like I was something else entirely, but my voice was not working. And my stepson knew it. He was watching me, waiting, daring me. I forced myself to move, my breath coming out unsteady. I need to talk to you alone, I finally said, looking straight at my husband. Right now, he frowned. Why? Because I need to tell you something. Or I could just leave, my stepson cut in smoothly. I do not want to cause any trouble. I clenched my teeth. That was the game. Make me look paranoid. Make it seem like I was the one overreacting. Make my husband doubt me enough that he would not believe the truth. And it was working. My husband's expression darkened, confused. He looked at my stepson, then back at me. I felt the shift, the space between us growing. I had to stop it. Now, you do not understand, I started, stepping forward. But my stepson did something I did not expect. He sighed loudly. I will just go, he muttered, shaking his head. I really did not mean to upset her. My stomach dropped. That single sentence sent a chill through me. I turned to my husband in panic. He is lying. But my husband did not look at me. He was staring at his son, thinking, processing. I saw it. The doubt, the hesitation, the first crack in his trust. And that was all my stepson needed. He gave me one last unreadable glance before he walked away, leaving me alone in the silence. I stood there, heart hammering, watching my husband's expression shift into something unreadable, and deep in my gut, I knew this was not over. It was only the beginning. The silence in the kitchen was crushing, heavy, like an unbearable weight pressing down on my chest. My husband stood across from me, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, they had changed. There was something in them I had never seen before. Not just doubt, not just confusion, coldness. A coldness that sent a slow, creeping fear through my veins. Tell me the truth. His voice was steady, too steady, not the kind of calm that reassures. The kind that warns of a storm waiting to break. I felt the blood drain from my face. Tell me what the hell I just walked into. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. His posture was tense, rigid, like he was forcing himself to stay still. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. You know me, I whispered desperate, my voice shaking. You know I would never. Before I could finish, a voice cut through the tension. My stepson. I do not think she meant for it to happen, Dad. I stopped breathing. The world tilted. My husband's face darkened. What did you just say? His voice was quieter now, dangerous. I turned sharply, my stomach twisting in horror. What? My stepson stood there, his expression carefully crafted, the perfect mix of hesitation and sadness. The liar's face. I knew what he was doing, I knew exactly what he was doing. But my husband did not. And that was the part that terrified me the most. I tried to tell her it was wrong, my stepson continued, his voice calm, steady. But she seemed lost, confused. I staggered back, the words hitting me like a physical blow. Number no, no, no. You lying little... My voice broke. I turned to my husband, panic clawing at my throat. Do not listen to him. He is twisting everything. You know me. You... Enough. One word. Sharp. Lethal. Spoken by the man who once loved me. My stomach plummeted. He was looking at me, but not like he used to. There was no warmth left, no familiarity, just doubt, just anger, just emptiness. You are saying he is lying? His tone was flat. I felt my body shaking. You think I... The words got stuck in my throat. You think I wanted this? I could not believe this was happening. I could not believe this was happening. My stepson was playing his role perfectly, the misunderstood victim. His voice was softer now, carefully chosen words, each one designed to dig the knife deeper. I did not want to say anything, Dad. I really did not. He exhaled shakily. But I cannot just pretend nothing happened. I cannot act like she did not... He trailed off. His shoulders drooped slightly, like he was burdened by the weight of it. And that was all it took. I saw it happen. The moment my husband's mind snapped into place, I saw the way his jaw tensed, the way his chest rose and fell too fast, too hard. My stepson had been waiting for this moment, the exact moment where doubt would turn to certainty, and he had just won. I do not even know who you are anymore. My husband's voice was like ice. My knees almost buckled. The way he looked at me, it shattered something inside me. He had made up his mind. I could see it in his eyes. It did not matter that I was telling the truth. It did not matter that I was begging him to believe me. It did not matter that the boy standing beside him had a smirk hidden just beneath his carefully crafted sorrow. My husband believed him, and I had just lost everything. The house felt foreign now, unfamiliar, as if the walls that had once held warmth and love had collapsed into something unrecognizable. The air was thick, suffocating, drenched in disbelief and betrayal. And I stood at the center of it, watching my life fall apart. I heard the front door close. My stepson had left, smug, victorious, and my husband... He stood there, unmoving, staring at the floor like he was trying to piece together a puzzle that had no right answer. His breathing was uneven, his fists clenched, and then, slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes met mine, and what I saw destroyed me. There was no love left, no recognition. I was not his wife anymore. I was something else, something he could not even look at without disgust. Tell me the truth. His voice was hoarse, raw, like it hurt to say the words. One last time. I swallowed against the lump in my throat. My hands shook at my sides, but I forced myself to move forward. I am telling you the truth. My voice cracked. He lied to you. He twisted everything. His face did not change. Why would he do that? His tone was sharp, clipped. Why would he lie about something like this? I let out a shaky breath. Because he wants to destroy me. He let out a humorless laugh. Destroy you? His lips twisted. What sense does that make? What would he gain? My body ached with frustration, with desperation. Control, I whispered. Power, the satisfaction of ruining something good. He shook his head, exhaling harshly. You are not making any sense. Because you do not want to hear the truth. The words burst out before I could stop them. filled with everything I had held back. Because you are too scared to face the fact that your son is not who you think he is. His eyes flashed. Anger, pain, denial. Do not turn this around on me. His voice was sharp, cutting. Do not act like I am the one who is blind here. Tears burned at my eyes, my throat tightening. You are blind! His jaw clenched. I could feel it happening. The last thread between us snapping. I loved you, he murmured, his voice almost too quiet to hear. But I do not know who you are anymore. The words sliced through me like a knife. I took a step forward, reaching for him, but he stepped back. A physical rejection, final, absolute. You cannot believe him over me. My voice broke. You cannot. His gaze flickered like a war was being fought inside him. But in the end, he only said 4 words. I do not know, and that was worse than him screaming at me. Worse than if he had told me outright that he thought I was guilty, because doubt meant I had already lost. I let out a soft, shaky breath. What happens now? My voice was hollow. He looked away. Silence. Then finally he spoke. I think you should leave. My chest caved in. I felt it the moment my world collapsed. He was choosing, and he was not choosing me. I let out a small, broken laugh. So that is it? My voice was barely above a whisper. Years of marriage gone in a single night because of a lie? His jaw tightened, his hands balling into fists. I just need time. I shook my head, stepping back. No, you do not. You have already made your choice. He said nothing, because we both knew it was true. The silence between us was unbearable, and then, slowly, I turned away. I walked toward the stairs, each step heavier than the last. I could feel his gaze burning into my back, but I did not turn around. I could not. I reached the bedroom, my fingers stitching as I grabbed a bag, packing, moving on instinct, because I knew there was nothing left for me here. He had already let me go, and I was finally accepting it. With every piece of clothing I folded, every zip of the suitcase, the reality of my situation settled into my bones. I had lost. I had lost to a lie, and there was nothing I could do to change it. As I stepped toward the door, I paused. One last time I let my eyes roam over the bedroom, the place we had once built a life together, a life that was now nothing but ashes. Then, without another word, I walked out, and I did not look back.